pizza and tacos. I don't know what else.
It didn't make sense. And you could see his coach was like,
Yeah.
he's sticking by him, but Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome back to a new episode of The Next Move. Today I have a really cool guest with me. He has an interesting occupation, and it's going to be really fun. So with me today is Mr. George Francis. Thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. I like to be referred to as cool as
That's
well.
cool. That's cool. He's a fight promoter, and he does something else on this for another job as well, but he also does fight promotions. And I think are you coming up on your 9th one?
Coming up on the 9th one for Fighters Rep, which is my promotion. But I've also helped match the undercards, the amateur undercards for CXF in the past. They then became LXF, Lights Out Extreme Fighting. But now I'm just doing Fighters Rep because it was just too much to do more than one promotion, So Fighters Rep. It was MMA at first. I started it in 2017, 2 years ago, I guess now 3 since we're in 2020. Yeah. But this year I transitioned it into a kickboxing only promotion, and that's what I enjoy. That's what I love the most is kickboxing.
Yeah. And today we're basically gonna go through like what it's like to be George Francis fight promoter. So let's kind of start from the beginning. Yeah. For me, I got into the fight game really late. I love sports, but I wasn't into combat sports really. So I think my first fight that I ended up watching that I can remember was a Frankie Edgar versus the Prodigy, BJ Penn. And I think Frankie Edgar won on decision. I think it was like 10 years ago.
Good introduction.
Yeah, so I remember watching that fight, and that hooked me. Because I wasn't into boxing, I wasn't into MMA, and that one actually kind of hooked me. So when did you get introduced into combat sports?
Oh, man. To be honest with you, I can't remember. It happened so long ago. I grew up in Miami, and my family loved boxing, and my neighbors loved boxing. And everybody was always watching boxing. I went to the WWE Royal Rumble when it was in Miami. Like, I don't even know when that was. I was probably in the early 90s or something. But I remember watching all the boxing fights. I loved Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
Yeah, I remember that video game.
Yeah, man, it got me into boxing. I thought Mike Tyson was like a god. Everybody thought he was the man.
I remember like trying to you had to punch up in that like Nintendo game and everything like that. Yeah, and Sandman and everything.
And then I remember when Sega Genesis came out, I was big on Evander Holyfield's Real Deal Boxing, and then Super Nintendo was George Foreman's boxing. So I grew up, with boxing being like a part of my life the way any other sport would be. Football was big in Miami. I played football all the time outside. Like, that's what we did. We went according to season, but man, we loved to watch boxing. We would box each other in the backyard. It was a lot of fun. I loved boxing. I can't remember when I was introduced.
So forever.
To it. Yeah.
Okay. So I do remember when I first met you, you weren't promoting fighting. You were actually doing something in the fight game, but it wasn't promotion. You had the voice. Yeah, I was ring announcing, and I got into it first. I was interviewing fighters. I'm a lawyer by trade. That's my day job, and I didn't like it. And now it's okay, but it's not something that I love. And I needed to do something that I really enjoyed because I've always had like a big creative streak, and I always needed to, do something that made me happy. And so I started interviewing fighters because the lawyering thing was just like very hard for me to deal with ethically. I saw a lot of things ethically in the profession that were just incongruent with me as a person, and I needed something to kind of get me away from that. And I really loved the fight game. So I started interviewing fighters, and I felt like this was a way to give back to them as well as entertain people because they all want to be interviewed. They all want some sort of exposure. They deserve it. They're very underpaid, underappreciated.
probably the most difficult sport. All these combat sports, of course, when you compare it against, baseball and stuff like that. I mean, those people are not getting punched in the face. So, I started out interviewing people. Then someone asked me to announce a show in Miami. I did that. I kept announcing. I came here, and then I announced here. And then I saw, the way the shows were running, and I said to myself, I think I could do a better job. Basically, both of the shows that I announced for here went out of business eventually. And it's because I just felt like they were throwing money at stuff that didn't matter. And so I said, I can do this better. So I think I'm doing it better.
Yeah. I've been to a lot of your shows, and they're really good, and they seem to get better every time.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. So how is the transition going? So you said 2 years, or now almost 3 years of Fighters Rep, but you were doing the ring announcing. It's some chance taking there too, because now you're putting yourself out there. It's you're running the whole show. What went into that decision to be like, okay, you know what, I'm going to take it to a different level. I'm not going to just do the ring announcing. I love this sport. I love this art so much. What went into that decision? Yeah,
so I was ring announcing, and then the Athletic Commission for MMA, which is CAMO, the Amateur Athletic Commission for MMA. CAMO stands for California Amateur Mixed Martial Arts Organization. They were like, why don't you do a show? You're a smart guy. You're a lawyer. You can put a show together. They saw me at all the shows announcing, so I was like, maybe I'll think about it. And then I announced for a guy who did a show, and he was like, do you want to go half with me? So I said, okay, let's do it. And I went half with him, and I announced at the show where, I went half with him.
This is prior to Fighters Rep, though.
This was just before September of 2017. A couple months before that, he did a show.
So this wasn't the San Bernardino one?
It was in the same venue. It was in San Bernardino, but it wasn't Fighters Rep yet. And he asked me to do a show together, and I think the one we did together was Fighters Rep. But the one that I announced for him before that wasn't Fighters Rep. That's the way it went. It was his own thing. Okay. So I announced a show for him, and then he was like, why don't we work together? I was like, okay. And then I started Fighters Rep. I registered it, and then I was like, let's do it. And we did Fighters Rep 1, and then I did Fighters Rep 2 in San Bernardino as well. And it was MMA for the first year until I got to 2019, and I was like, I'm doing well in MMA, but I prefer kickboxing. Mm-hmm. So I said, I love kickboxing. I want to do something I love, right? It goes back into why I started interviewing fighters in the first place. I'm always about doing something you love. Mm-hmm. So I started doing something I love, which was kickboxing, and that's all I've been doing since February of 2019. It's been less than a year. Seems like a long time, but it's been less than a year.
Yeah. So Fighters Rep, though, is always you. It wasn't partnership. It wasn't started off as a partnership or anything like that.
It started off as a partnership, but he wasn't a partner on paper. I didn't make anyone a partner on paper because before I did that, I wanted to get a feel with how it was to work with somebody else.
Yeah.
And I got a feel of it, and I didn't like it. And I probably won't work with anybody ever as far as Fighters Rep goes, unless it's something where, they have like a brand or something, they want to be a sponsor. Then I'm happy to work with people. And of course, I'm happy to work with independent contractors, right? Like the DJ that I have, like the videographer, like yourself, you know what I mean? People that will come and help. But it doesn't really need more than one person to kind of bring all these people together and put a promotion together. When you bring a partner on, at least that was my experience in this sport, they have their opinion as to how things should go. You have your opinion. It doesn't always work out, know, and because this is like my passion and what I care about, I guess I want to be a tyrant, Yeah. I want it my way.
You have your vision. I mean? You have your vision.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can understand that. So let's go back to the beginning of Fighters Rep then. So you decide, I'm going to do Fighters Rep. You have your first show. I think the first one I went to was your second show because you had 2 shows in San Bernardino.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to the second one. What went into that? Doing that first, because that's got to be crazy. I guess you had some experience doing the partnership, so you kind of had some idea of what was going on behind the scenes. But now you're doing it by yourself. What went into setting up that first Fighters Rep?
The hardest part initially for me was just making the connections, networking with fighters and camps, and being sure I had enough people that wanted to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an issue in the first show. I only had like 8 or 9 fights.
How were your connections at that time?
They were, I mean, as weak as they can be for a first-time show. But I managed to rattle off 8 or 9 fights, which wasn't horrible. And a couple of guys sold pretty well. So I ended up doing okay. Any money I did make, I kind of just reinvested it in my own, staff and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
My staff is family.
Yeah.
And a couple of friends. And so I pay them before I pay myself, and I pay the promotion before I pay myself, So that's what I did. It was just a fun investment, and it was good. It was hard to match fights. That was the hardest thing. There are not that many promotions down here.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that are here mostly are amateur because it costs so much to run a pro promotion, so there are hardly any. So, I mean, it was tough being in that environment. There's a lot of amateur promotions, not a lot of quality ones. And just getting your name out there, being a guy from Miami, not from here, I just didn't really know that many people here. And so I had to really, contact gyms and reach out and see who wanted to fight. And the good thing is there's always people that want to fight.
Yeah.
The bad thing is there's a lot of good artists.
Yeah, I can see that.
And
we've talked about this a lot.
Oh, my God.
It's probably going to be one of the things we talk about later on this thing about the frustration of that, because I know that's going to be frustrating, but yeah.
Yeah, so, MMA is very much and I say MMA because I think in that sport more than others, it's very much more a fad, something cool to do more than it is a martial art or something that people dedicate their lives to. Everybody wants to be an MMA fighter. They see it on TV. They post BS on Instagram, and they think they're a fighter. And I've had to deal with so many, for lack of a better word, sociopathic personalities that it's just, I don't know, narcissistic. I don't know where their heads are at. You know what I mean? And weeding out those people has been a difficult process because, the only way you kind of find out who's a joker and who's not is signing them up to fight, and then they burn
up,
you.
right?
They burn you. And I actually had 2 guys not show up to the last weigh-in, and it's like, why did you sign up? I'm not messing around here, So it's difficult. Getting fights together is probably still the hardest part,
What about the other stuff? I know finding vendors, finding.
God, yeah.
I'm guessing. So before Fighters Rep, you hit up the San Bernardino one. Is the sport? It's not the Sportsplex.
In San Bernardino, it was. Gosh, I forgot the name because somebody bought it out and now they changed it. But it was some gym where MMA fighters went to train. I'll remember it now.
But so you had that. You had to find a location, and
that's been, if at this point that's probably been one of the toughest things. Is finding a location.
What's tough about the location part?
So the way the sport is designed, you have to have. It's not like any other event. Mm-hmm. It's not like any other event. And I say that because if I were to do a concert at a venue, let's say, what would I need? I bring the singer, I pay the singer, and I would need insurance probably for the crowd and to pay for the venue, right?
Yeah.
With fighting, you don't just bring the entertainment and have to pay for them, and there's several of them. But you also have to you have to cover their medical insurance, right? So there's a minimum that these commissions, have you pay for medical insurance, and then the commission has to come out and sanction the event,
mm-hmm.
and they take a good bit of money from you, and it's deserved. I mean, unfortunately, it's a lot of money, and it prevents there from being a lot of promotions, especially pro ones in California. But it's deserved because the commission is the one that sends out the physician and the inspectors and the referees and the judges and all of that, and you have to pay for all of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's something you don't have to pay for in another event, the judges and the referees, and we're talking thousands of dollars. And then you also, on top of the general liability insurance that covers the audience, you also have to have the insurance for the fighters.
Yeah, which I would assume that's a big deal. It's a big deal.
It's a good bit of money. You got to bring a ring. You know, you got to rent a ring. If you don't have a ring, lighting, a DJ, you know, ring card girls. I mean, this is all stuff that's expenses. I bring out CCBs, you know, those bike racks to prevent people from coming towards the ring. I don't want anybody to come towards the ring and get hurt, interfere with the fighters.
Was this all on first one? Or is this stuff that you started to pick up as you were going?
You know, I've improved it as it's gotten bigger. But, for instance, like the San Bernardino venue was cool. It was Adrenaline. That's what it was called.
Oh, yeah.
Adrenaline was cool because they had their own octagon.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I transitioned into kickboxing and I stuck out to a closer area here in the South Bay. This fight is in the Seal Beach, so it's in Seal Beach, so it's not the South Bay, but it's a lot closer to me. Yeah. You know, when I got closer, I mean, there's no venues really that have a boxing ring built in, and the ones that do, they're not big enough to seat anybody. So you have to go and get a boxing ring. You know, it costs money to get a boxing ring. Yeah. It's not free. And you got to, you know, hire people to build it and break it down, and it has to be on time, and the venue has to be cool with it. Mm-hmm. That's another thing. Venues have to be okay with holding fights at their venue. A lot of people are terrified about that, you know. And I've always got to explain to them. They're all like, oh, we're worried about liability. I've had several hotels turn me down. But that's something that people really don't understand in our society about the fight game is, you know, having a wedding at your hotel, a wedding reception, is probably more dangerous liability-wise than having a fight. Because with the fights, I mean, not only am I forced to buy insurance, people are not buying insurance for a wedding reception. They're just not doing it. Mm-hmm. But me, I'm buying insurance that covers the venue. I'm buying, you know, medical insurance for the fighters. I'm required to do so, otherwise the show gets shut down. Yeah. So it's like, you know, if somebody gets hurt at a fight, you know, you have the assumption of risk laws. You know, one is expected to get hurt if they go to a fight. You know, it's something that could happen. Whereas a wedding, it's more risky. You don't expect someone to get hurt, but you know, maybe someone picks up the groom and drops him, and you know, you have a real problem.
Yeah. Okay, so we have your first fighters rep go down. Yeah. Do you remember how that went?
Fighters rep one went well. It went well. The fights were okay. It was the final fight that was really exciting. The main event. I remember it was Khalid Benjamin against Jarrett Connor. That was a title fight? That was a title fight. Okay. That was my first title fight. We were still doing MMA back then. This was in 2017. So 2017. To 2018, we did MMA, and then 2019, we switched
to kickboxing.
So it was Jarrett Connor, and one thing I want to say about Jarrett Connor is he's the third guy that's fought for Fighters Rep that went to Bellator. So I'm very, you know, proud of that. I'm proud of him, and I'm proud of being able to give him a venue to compete in and, you know, help him along in his journey to living out his dreams, you know? Yeah. He's going to be fighting for Bellator now, man. I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
And it's been him. It's been Roman Puga, who was also our 145-pound champion, just fought his first boxing match as well, and he's 1-0 in boxing now as a pro. And this kid named Sonny Imhotep, he was also one of our champions. I believe it's in the 155-pound division. It may have been. I don't remember exactly now, but Sonny also made it to Bellator and won his first fight by spectacular knockout in Bellator. So 3 guys that have hit Bellator, and one's in Combate Americas. Trevor Wells, very talented kid.
So is that one of the things that draws you to doing this promotion? Is the fact that you're helping people?
Of course. I'm altruistic beyond anything that I think most people would ever experience in their lives. If I feel like I'm doing something that's not helping anybody, I lose motivation. And I start falling apart. And that's how I felt for a long time as a lawyer. That's how I felt, and that's why I got into the promoting thing. Because there's absolutely nothing that I can find in promoting that isn't helping. Yeah. Right? From the entire concept of it, 2 guys fighting in a controlled environment. Right there, you're getting them off the street, right? Right there, they're not doing it in the street. Right there, you're helping them build a resume to become a gym owner, to become a professional fighter, to become a promoter, to become a broadcast personality or a journalist. Just by having one fight, they've already got enough under their belt to do something with that, you know. As well as, you know, you're bringing entertainment to the people that are coming to watch it. You're making money for the people that are vending. I mean, there's really, it's all positive, man. It's awesome. It's the nicest thing I've ever done for people. And I feel like I've done a lot of nice things for people because, like I said, you know, I'm pretty altruistic. As long as I'm happy, I don't care. Like, of course, I would love money, but I don't do stuff just for money. And it's been really nice. It's been I've had messages that I've gotten from my phone from fighters and from people that, like, it was, you know, priceless, like what they tell me.
The gratitude,
you know? Yeah, the gratitude. It's very nice.
Yeah, I think in any job that the stuff outside of money, if you can do a job or do something that you can find like pleasure in, that doesn't have to just be money. We all need to make money. Yeah. But like it doesn't have to be.
I'm good as long as I'm making enough to pay my bills and support my family. I'm good, but I do want to make more, partially because I want to obviously improve my own lifestyle. But my goal is to get these guys paid. Mm-hmm. These guys don't have, man. These guys don't make anything compared to other athletes, especially. And there's no need for that because it's such an entertaining sport. And I would love to get it to the point where it's like the NFL or the MLB or something where I could really pay these guys enough money to make a living, a nice living. Mm-hmm. You know, I would love to do that. I'd love to be that guy, you know, and I think that's still wide open. That's something that still needs to be done.
Yeah, and we're actually going to talk a little bit about that towards the end because I know you're going to be going into or dipping your toe into that side of the realm there. But okay, so it's Fighters Rep 1 done. Going into Fighters Rep 2 and 3, 4. What did you learn most from your first one and then going into the next ones? Because I would always assume like you're the type of person, you're going to do your event, you're going to go back, you're going to look at everything and figure out, okay, how could I be better? How can I make this better? And I think you have probably the highest jump from your first one to whatever. I remember I brought one of my buddies over, and it was you had one held at a hotel,
the Sportsman's Lodge, which burned down.
Oh yeah, but so I brought him there, and I told him like we're gonna go. It's an amateur. I think at the time it was still MMA. Yeah, maybe it was some MMA, Thai or I don't know. But we went, and his eyes were all big. Like I was expecting like some backyard thing, and it was like we went into an event.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah, so it grew. It grew from your first one to your second, third, fourth. So what was the biggest thing that you've learned from the beginning to kind of like where you are now?
Man, I've learned so much. I think what I learned the most at the beginning was trim the fat, man. I got to get rid of the shit that I don't need. I got to get rid of the people that I don't need, you know? Like I said, a lot of these other promotions, the ones that I announced for here in California, the couple that I did announce for, both went out of business because they were paying for shit that they didn't need. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to be that guy paying money for people and for things that I didn't need. And, you know, cutting out a little bit can make a big difference at times. So, you know, like at first I had a matchmaker. It wasn't working out. I was, you know, I was like, I didn't think.
So you were paying someone else to? I
was paying someone to make matches. Didn't work out. I didn't think it was necessary.
Are there people that's their occupation basically, or what they do? Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so I got rid of that. You know, the partner, I got rid of that. You know, just anything that I felt was holding me back and holding the promotion. Because for me, the promotion, I love it. So the promotion came first. You know, Whatever I can do to keep this thing going, mm-hmm. and keep people happy and wanting to fight for me. That's what I was aiming for. So trimming the fat, getting rid of the stuff that I didn't need. And with time, I figured out the things that I needed and that I didn't need. And it was obviously a great idea to have my family as my staff because I can trust all of them. They're good people. And just besides them, just really close friends that I work with, you know. Another thing I learned was, and it's unfortunate at the same time, it's a little bittersweet, but especially now, I'm much more selective on the fighters because at first I didn't have the connections I do
Mm-hmm.
now. But now that I've established myself and people have gotten to know who I am, and they can see that, you know, I'm here to do good by them and by myself, obviously, but I'm here to do good by them, and I'll do anything I can to help them as well. I think I've built myself a strong reputation in the sport in the brief time that I've been in it. Obviously, I've got a lot to go. But I can be much more selective now because I've got, I mean, tons of people signing up to fight. Every day I get text messages. Every day I get messages on social media telling me, hey, can I fight? Can I fight? Can I fight? And one thing that I learned is, one of the biggest things is the independent fighters that are not part of like a big camp. Like I said, it's bittersweet. I don't really like to work with them a lot of the time because those are the guys typically that don't show up, or, you know, that leave us hanging at weigh-ins, or, you know, don't bring their tickets back, or, you know, those are the people that have given me the headache. So now that I've established myself with what I think are the best teams in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and I say that because we're in Southern California, we have the best MMA gyms in the world here. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, the only ones that can hang with us are some of the gyms down in Florida, like you know, Henry Hoof's gym. I think it's 365, Hard Knocks 365, and American Top Team, and teams like that. There's a couple teams like that, but here in California, we've got everybody.
It's talent rich out here.
Yeah, man. So you know, I've gotten in now with a lot of these camps. They trust me, I trust them, and that's one thing I learned too. I'm only going to deal with these people that are serious about the sport because I'm serious about it. You know, I don't want people that are going to come in and mess around.
Let's talk about social media, because marketing is a huge thing, especially when you're doing things on your own. You're not in a big business or anything. How important has social media been for you?
You know, when you ask me what I've learned,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to segue into that. It's amazing that you bring that up. That's really coincidental. That's exactly what I was thinking about. That's another huge thing that I learned. That's a thing that has separated me from the competition locally. On the social media front, I'm definitely more active than any of the competition. And by competition, I'm referring to the promotions out here, the amateur and even the pro promotions out here in California. Because as far as the kickboxing pro promotion, which we're doing our first pro-am in February, I don't have any competition. I'm the only one. I'm the only pro-am, only pro kickboxing promotion in the whole state. I may be the only kickboxing promotion, period. I know there's one promotion that does a mix of MMA and kickboxing and Muay Thai. That's not my style. I'm sort of more of a specialist. I like to specialize in one thing, so I am the only exclusively kickboxing promotion that I know of, and especially pro. And I feel like that's really set me apart because a lot of these promotions are either not posting anything on social media. They're concentrating on only, you know, one social media platform. They only use it maybe to look for fighters. It's just being neglected, and I feel like despite the fact that I don't have unlimited resources, like I really have a team behind me and myself attacking social media, and it's so important. It's so important.
I do know. So you're really consistent with it, especially now. You are.
We post every day.
Yeah,
we post every day.
You've even expanded that realm now. So it's not only just to promote the fact that you have a fight coming up. I know you have like your weekly and maybe every other day. Yeah. I think did you start a podcast too? The Keep It Clean?
I started the Keep It Clean video podcast Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific. And immediately after the big fights, we go live on YouTube just to talk about the fight game. You know, there's always something going on. So I do that, and obviously I advertise our own fights. But I talk about, you know, what's happening in boxing and MMA, but mostly boxing.
And so you're using that as your primary marketing tool now, right? Is your social media channels?
Of course. I mean, I don't know what else there is. I mean, I don't know what, you know, a lot of these promoters, they're relying on the fighters, and it's a good idea, obviously, because fighters are the ones that sell the tickets, right? But, you know, as a brand, you also have to build yourself so that one day you can be independent from just relying on the fighters. I mean, what if a fighter shows up and doesn't sell any tickets? You know, that's when you crash and burn. So I've been working on building the brand on social media. And people like it. We'll do a humorous post. We'll do a fun video. We'll do a reaction video. We do cool commercials like the ones you've helped me with, which I think are sick, and the fighters love them and the fans love them. So it's very important, man. If you're not on social media, and you're not taking advantage of that free advertising, I think you're not promoting.
Do you have to put? So yeah, that's one of the things I love about social media is the fact that it's free. But I do know you could put money into it. Is it something that you've had to put money into?
I put money into it in certain instances, like if you create a Facebook event and you want it to reach more people in specific cities or whatever, I'll put money into it to reach out to those cities, because the fights are in Seal Beach. So I reach out to Seal Beach and Long Beach and all the adjacent cities. If you don't do that, the little advertisement will never pop up on people's phone, and they'll only be able to hear about the event through word of mouth. So, I think that's silly not to put a little bit of money into that.
How much is a little bit of money? Are we talking? Is it hundreds?
Hundreds on each one. So, maybe a total of a few $1,000s.
Okay.
You're going to make it back in ticket sales anyway when people see it. So
people always say you have to spend money to make money,
You do, yeah, especially in promoting. It's promoting. It's in the name, you've got to spend money on promotion.
I did see you also, I was driving home from work a couple months ago. I think it was a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And they have these electronic billboards up. And what do you know? Fighters Rep is up on the thing promoting.
Yeah.
Is that a new avenue that you're kind of looking into, or is it kind of a one-time thing?
It was a one-time thing. I didn't like it. I couldn't really measure what I got from the billboard. And it was one of those blip billboards, because if you get like a solid billboard for the fights, at this level where the venue that I'm at can fit like 1,000, maybe a couple thousand tops. I think if you had a bigger venue, like if I got an arena, which eventually, I'm sure I will, but for a larger fight where I would need an arena, a billboard I think would make sense. But, when you've got a venue that fits about 1,000, 2,000 people, to get a billboard is kind of it's not smart. They charge a lot for those things, especially if you have it up for like a month. And it just
if it's just a still?
Yeah, and it just doesn't make sense. So I tried the blip ones.
Was that expensive?
It wasn't bad, and then it was like funky. I couldn't tell if it was working or not. And they ended up saying, "Oh, please stay with us. We'll give you like a free week or whatever." I was like, "All right, whatever. I'll try it out." But I'll try out anything to get the brand and to get the these kids out there. They get their names out there. I'll try anything. So I tend to experiment a lot on social media and advertising because it's important.
Yeah, and I think with social media now too, you have the analytics, so it's a lot easier to measure.
Yeah,
and like you said, with the billboard, it's kind of hard.
With the billboard, yeah, you can't. They have an estimate as to how many people saw it, but you never know.
Let's walk through what a day looks like for you on fight day, and we might reverse back in a second here. But on a fight day, that's a big day for me. Like my personality is, I'd be super stressed.
Yeah.
You seem to keep everything cool, collected.
I've gotten used to it.
But you're the head guy now. So morning of, what are you doing?
I wake up. I'm at the venue before everybody. I make sure that everything's set up or getting set up. I make sure everything's ready to go as soon as possible because that gives me a lot of peace. And by everything being ready to go, the ring is set up, the barricades around it are set up, the chairs are set up, the banners are set up, everything's just ready to go, and everybody knows where they have to be and when they have to be there. Also, it's a kind of a 2-day thing because we have weigh-ins the day before, so that's always a bit of a headache as well. Yeah. Are people going to make weight? Are people going to show up? Are people going to bring their tickets?
Is that more stressful than the day of?
It's a little bit less. A little bit less, but it's up there. It's up there. So those are the two most stressful days for me are weigh-ins and the day of the fights. And the day of the fights is also, both of them have kind of a fun aspect to them, right? Because the weigh-ins are exciting. We're taking pictures of the weigh-ins and putting them on social media and getting people hyped up and ready. And then for the fights, obviously, the fights are awesome.
Yeah.
The fights are awesome. I mean, you've been to the shows. I do my best to make sure that we match these guys evenly. And these guys go to war, man. And it's all stand and bang. There's no hugging. There's no grappling. There's no wrestling. This is unified rules kickboxing. It's
no clinching.
No clinching. I mean, they'll let you hold with one hand as long as you're working.
Yeah.
But Dan Bam still one of the best referees in the game. He's going to come in there and he's going to break you up and he's going to make you fight. So he was a 17-0 kickboxer himself. So he loves this rule set. I mean, it's like it was meant to be, man. Like, I love kickboxing, and I got a referee who basically teaches other referees how to be a referee, who is a former kickboxer, undefeated, and it's his favorite rule set. And it's almost like the guy's constantly supporting me. He's also vice president of the IKF. So it's like the sanctioning body. I mean, he's part of the sanctioning body. He wants to see the sport grow. He's a fantastic individual. I mean, I've hung out with him and his wife. We've gone out to dinner and stuff. I mean, it's great to be around like-minded people.
How'd you get him? Because he wasn't just assigned, was he?
No. It's there's only 2 commissions in the state of California that sanction amateur fights. It's the IKF, which is the International Kickboxing
Federation.
Federation.
You do, right?
That's what I do. And it's Camo for MMA, which is who I used to use when I was doing MMA shows. And the IKF just happens to be run by Steve Folsom, who's the president, and Dan Bam Stell is the vice president. And his wife, Elaine, has a very high position as well. She kind of like does a lot of the very important like admin work at the fights and the weigh-ins. And
I've seen her at the weigh-ins.
Yeah, and she's, I mean, amazing. They're amazing people. And the fact that Bam just happens to come from that kickboxing background and to be an undefeated fighter with 17 wins, 15 of them by way of knockout. I mean, this guy's a beast. And then the reason I say it's such a coincidence because the IKF is the International Kickboxing Federation, but probably the majority of the shows they're sanctioning are Muay Thai. It's not kickboxing, and there is a difference. Obviously, the Muay Thai is knees and elbows and clinching. Kickboxing is no elbows, no clinching. You can throw a knee, but it's not the same. And so for him to be a kickboxing specific guy, and to also be the vice president of IKF and also one of the best referees. He referees boxing events too, like major boxing and MMA events. So I feel blessed and I feel like I'm doing the right thing, when I get people like that are just happen to be a part of Fighters Rep,
Okay, and then so with the fight starting, you're there. What's
Sorry,
a big
I went off on a tangent there.
How important is it for you to be mingling? I know you want to enjoy the show, but you kind of have to. You're in charge, You have to kind of run the thing. I don't know if you have anyone like a person right underneath you or anything like that.
Yeah, so I have a kid named Jesse Brown. He's a kid. He's from out in the East Coast. He's had an amateur fight before. He loves the fight game. Younger kid in his 20s, just fantastic kid, man. And he helps me with the matchmaking. He helps me with everything. And great kid, man. He helps me out a lot. He helps me out a lot. And,
on the day up too?
Everything.
Okay.
Everything. Cool. And he does it, obviously, I mean, you got to love this to do it, and he loves it and he helps me a lot. I mean, with the matchmaking, with the weigh-ins, with getting guys ready, making sure they have everything they need. And so he really lightens my load, and then obviously we have a kid, Ivan Calderon, on the social media front.
I've seen him interview you a few times.
Yeah, another great kid, man. I have Marco Martinez also helps me out on the social media with the videography and stuff. Great guy. I've got a lot of help, man. I've got great family members.
So do you have to do too much once the fight has begun? Because I see you sitting ringside a lot.
Yeah.
Has it got to the point where you've been able to delegate a lot of the stuff to other people and you can just be there if there's an emergency or anything?
I'm mostly there for to put out fires and to make sure sometimes I freak out if somebody gets hurt, the ambulance has to come through.
That hasn't really happened too often though, has it?
Not too often, but it has happened and I get worried. Oh my God, is this kid gonna be okay?
I remember the broken leg one on that fight I was looking forward to right away.
That one, and then we had another one where the kid got knocked out and started seizing in the ring, and freaked me out a little bit. So I am there for emergencies. And, sometimes the staff has questions and they're like, what do we do? What do we do?
So has that evolved now since from the first one? Were you a little bit more hands-on the first one as far as now with Fighters Rep 9?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still, I'm still
You're
the
doing
tyrant,
it. Yeah.
I'm the chief. I won't say the tyrant. I'll say the chief, I'm still the chief, but, I let people do their thing. I think it's important to give people creative discretion. Like, the DJ, I tell him, look, this is what I want, but then do it how you want to do it, just make sure you do this. And then for Ivan, he's so creative with the social media stuff. I tell him, dude, just do your thing, do your thing. Just don't put anything inappropriate up.
Yeah.
Don't offend any of these fighters.
Yep.
Get our ass kicked, but do your thing,
Yeah, I guess just don't break your trust, and as long as everything's going good, then you should be good.
Yeah, and then Jesse Brown, the kid I told you about him, he's got a great temperament. For a kid that's in his 20s, mid 20s, late 20s, he's just got such a good temperament. I feel like I'm more immature than the guy sometimes, and I get pissed off, and he really calms me down. But he's starting to see like the issues with the sport, you know what I mean, and with dealing with guys in the sport, and it's funny to see those eureka moments for him. But he's really good. He's got a great temperament, and I think because of people like that, because of what I think is my ability to attract people like that into Fighters Rep, I think this thing is going to turn into something really special. I really do.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't like a little fluke thing anymore. Like you said, you're going into third year.
The ninth show.
12th
if you count the ones that I helped.
The
other promotions that but this
you did. You used to help with those other promotions. I remember that.
But this will be our 9th, our first Pro-Am.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited, man.
And I want to talk about that Pro-Am in just a second here. But before that, how much? So you, like you said, you're a lawyer by trade, but this is your passion. This is right here, being a fight promoter. And how much time goes into this on let's just say on a weekly basis?
It's gotten to the point where it's a couple hours a day at night. When I get home or whatever, it's not a big deal. But I'm always thinking about it. There's always something that comes to mind just because I love it so much, and I'm kind of obsessed with the fight game. And then, it's not just this anymore. It's the podcast as well, which is related to Fighters, right? The Keep It Clean podcast. And so I go live Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7 Pacific, and sometimes I'm on there for an hour. Whatever the viewers are feeling. It's like you told me now. I end it when I want to end it. Sometimes the show goes 25, 30 minutes. Sometimes it goes like yesterday's over an hour because people are talking to me. I'm not gonna,
that was the predictions for fights that we want?
I think, fights to be made in 2020.
Fury, I know you were talking about Fury, okay, so have you found it difficult to be doing this on the side with the other job?
Not at all. The lawyering thing, I mean, it ends at 4:30. It's kind of become second nature. I think I'm good at that job, and I actually enjoy that job. So, it's very, very easy to do both. They don't conflict. I do hope to one day get to the point, and I do think I'm going to get to the point sooner than later, where Fighters Rep is going to be the only thing on my plate, because there's a lot of potential here. I have all the talent in the world. I mean, Anderson Silva was at my last fight.
Yeah, I missed that fight. I saw it online, but I didn't get to go. And I saw Anderson Silva was there. His son was fighting.
His son fought for me. He's 4-0 now, Gabriel Silva. He's going to be fighting again in February. He's at a systems training center full of killers out there. They've got Christian Giagos, or I think it's Christos Giagos. He's a UFC fighter, among other people that they have there. They have Tarian Ware. I think he trains partially there as well. Also a UFC guy. Might be on the next Fighters Rep card, by the way. A UFC. He fights for the UFC as well. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I can go on and on. I mean, Saxon Muay Thai guys have fought for us. CMMA, Chad George's school. Black House MMA, where Anderson Silva trains. They always send me a handful of guys to compete.
So Okay, you came here from Florida. Now you're in California. You do your promotion. I would assume, just from the outside looking in, one of the hardest things is the connections, because connections in most things help you out a lot. But you kind of had to start from scratch. How'd you go about building those connections? Because the difference between, there's a lot of differences between me and you, but one of the biggest difference between me and you is the fact that how outgoing you are. And you make the effort to go out to these different camps and meet the owners and the fighters and the coaches and all that kind of stuff. So what went into going into making these connections?
Yeah, well, you say that about yourself, but I don't think you give yourself enough credit. You're always telling me you're an introvert.
I am an introvert.
You're putting on a hell of an interview right now. I think you've got the skills to pay the bills, brother. But yeah, I mean, it's all about my personality, I guess. I mean, I like you said, I'm outgoing. I'm down to talk to anybody. I'm cool with people. I'm nice to people. I respect people, And I did have to start from scratch, but it was just about cold calling gyms. And, when there's a will, there's a way. And when you want to get something done, you do it. And so I just picked up the phone and started cold calling gyms, and I had met a few people along the way ring announcing here. And I met, some trainers, and we became friends, and they had fighters and things like that. But I didn't really know that many people out here. And so I did have to do that, I did have to just cold call people, man.
The one thing I did want to get into is amateur versus pro. So you're going into the pro, you're going to dip your feet into the pro side. And again, I'm not very well versed in this industry as far as like how it's going to work, but I would think there's pros and cons to each side. On the amateur side, I would assume there's less overhead.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to pay fighters. I would look at it, if I'm an amateur going to your thing, their payment is the fact that you're putting on the promotion. They're getting their name out there. They have the ability to showcase their skills, with the hope of getting to the pro status. When you get to pro, though, I would assume there's a purse now.
Yeah, there's a purse.
So I would say there's more overhead with the pro than there is the amateur. Talk about what you feel like are the pros of doing just amateur or doing a pro-am versus just doing a pro.
So for me, and maybe some people disagree, but for me, the biggest pro of doing a pro-am for me is to continue to build the sport, is to evolve and build not only the brand, but the sport as well. And just if you take the sport forward, if you bring it up and you invest in the sport, it's going to get better for everybody. So I think that's the biggest pro for me in doing pros. Of course, the setbacks or the cons are you have to pay a purse to the fighters, so it's harder on the promotion, but it's nice that you're able to pay these guys for what they do, which is dangerous. But from a financial standpoint, it's more difficult, right? Because you have to pay for pros. The insurance goes up.
Insurance goes up. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the medical coverage basically doubles.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and which I think is weird because, amateurs can get hurt as well, but that's just the way, the athletic commission has done it here. The insurance goes up. I think the price of the commission probably goes up. So everything financially goes up. At the same time, you would hope that you're dealing with a more professional person, right? Yeah. Somebody that's going to show up on time and show up to weigh in and make weight and do everything they're supposed to do. On the amateur side, like I told you, I get a lot of knuckleheads. And I've really, spent a lot of time weeding people out, weeding people out. And I'm hoping that I don't get as much of that on the pro side. Yeah. The amateurs, you pay, you don't have to pay the amateurs, but you can do things like, which I do, like, give them for travel and gas and stuff like that. I try to help them out because they don't really, a lot of them don't have anything. I also I make sure to bring food.
I know you've done that with the especially weigh-ins. Yeah,
I feed them afterwards, man, because
they've been cutting weight.
And nobody wants to. I have an ask, right? I want to, hopefully, if a lot of people watch this podcast, I want to reach out to people and please sponsor me or the fighters. Sponsor us, because a lot of these kids have nothing, man. They have, and it's to the point where it's a pleasure to go out and spend money and buy them food and drinks to rehydrate and to eat something. A lot of them don't have anything, man. It's like really sad, It's like, man, these people, like, they have a dream. They're manifesting it. They're here. They're at weigh-in. Help me out. Help them out. And it's been very tough to find sponsors. It's been very tough. People look at combat sports and they're like, people get hurt.
They don't know if they want to associate themselves with that.
Man, but let me tell you, especially in kickboxing, these kids come from disciplined martial arts schools. They're busting their ass, regardless of what socioeconomic status they come from. A lot of these kids are, they found something to give them direction, and it's this sport. It's martial arts. Help them out, man. Help me out. I finally got a guy, in my last show for the first time, I was doing it almost 2 years now, that was willing to sponsor with some food. I mean, how much does it take to make like a thing of rice and chicken and stuff like that? It's not that big of a deal, but it's like, it's been very difficult. And I'm an outgoing person. I mean, I've knocked on a lot of doors and I've been turned down over and over and over again. So, I mean, I want to give a big shout out to Mariscos El Gordo, Christian. He's the one that, makes the food. You can follow him on Instagram at Mariscos El Gordo. You'll see him on all our posts at Fighters Rep. And he just gives me food, dude. He just gives me food for these kids. And he gets it, He gets what they go through. He gets that they don't have, these are young kids, man. And it's so hard to train for a fight and to have a job and to go to school and to do all that stuff. So, man, for someone to bring food for these kids, for me, it's just... it means so much, it means so much. And if I can get a little bit more sponsorship money, really, I mean, I already don't see a ceiling as far as potential goes for Fighters Rep, but if I can get some sponsorship money, some more sponsorship money, because we have great sponsors, but obviously you need more if you want, if you want to keep advancing. I think it would be incredible to get that, it would take this show to the next level that much faster if I can get some good sponsorships.
How important on the amateur level is it for the fighters to sell their tickets? Like, I know that's one of the responsibilities that they have to do as far as fighting on the card. Yeah. How important is that to the promotion itself?
Huge. It's huge. When you're a local show or a regional show, a smaller show, you don't have that UFC fame. You don't have that brand name that UFC and Bellator have. So you have to rely on these fighters to sell tickets. That's just the unfortunate reality. And if these fighters are not selling tickets, then they're doing you a disservice as the promoter, because you're not going to make any money. And they're doing themselves a disservice, because if they do decide to go pro, the first thing the promoter is going to ask is, how many tickets can this guy sell? Because it's a business at the end of the day. And if you can't sell yourself and you can't sell tickets, you're not just worthless to the promoter, you're a liability. You're a liability. And they're going to look at you as a statistic, as a number. And if they see that it costs them more money to put you on the show than you're going to bring in, then they're going to look at the next guy, even if he's inferior to you as a fighter. And it sucks, but it's the harsh reality. You need to be able to sell tickets, or else promoters are going to look elsewhere.
Yeah, I've seen Dana White a few times where he's like told fighters, like, they're good fighters, but they're not drawing anything, and they have to do some type of change. That's why you sometimes see these people that come up with these acts and stuff, because they need to figure out a way to promote themselves. But okay. On the pro-am side, are they required to sell the tickets as well, or is it a different...
Look, we hand physical tickets to the fighters if they want them, and we also have an online option. And if you go on fightersrep.com to buy tickets and you click buy your tickets here, it'll pull up the ticket page, and there's a spot after you purchase your ticket. Right underneath it says, who did you come to see? And that's the way I keep track of who's selling, and I give them credit.
Is there a quota?
No.
They don't have to. Okay,
I mean,
okay.
I asked for them to at least sell, try to hit 20, 25 tickets at least, that's hard for a lot of these guys, but try, because if you don't do that, then
someone has to pay for it.
Right. I mean, I'm paying for it. Some of the guys sell a lot, and some of the guys don't sell anything. And I tell the guys that don't sell a lot, like, I pay for your fight because I pay per fight to the commission. I pay for your insurance because I pay per fight for insurance. I pay for your poster. I'm doing that per fight. I pay for the videographer. Everything, a lot of it is per fight. And when I look at the numbers and you're a liability, then what's my incentive to bring you back? Why? Because you're a fantastic fighter? Well, you're an amateur. You're not. You're not a fantastic fighter.
Like you said, it's a business at the end of the day.
You need to make a name for yourself, and it's not just about fighting. It's about bringing people and putting butts in chairs as well. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. People don't like to hear it. If it were up to me, they could just concentrate on fighting if that's what they want to do. But the reality is, if you can't sell, then nobody's going to want you.
Yeah.
Ever. And sometimes selling is more important than fighting even. Like if you look at Conor McGregor, I mean, if he wants a shot at Khabib after this Donald Cowboy Cerrone fight.
Dana White's already said that it looks like he's going to get it.
Yeah, and who's going to tell him no? I mean, the guy draws so much.
Yeah.
And a guy like Justin Gaethje probably deserves it more. But, and then if you look at Artem Lobov, right? I mean, Artem Lobov was getting fights that he probably didn't deserve because he was Conor McGregor's buddy.
Who's the son of that boxer? He just quit recently.
Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.
Yeah, he gets fights.
That's another one. Yeah, it's just about who you are, your name, your marketability.
The tickets.
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of last few things here on the business side. In order for you, has there ever been a time that you've had to be in the red after an event?
Of course.
Oh, there has been.
Of course.
Okay. Is it?
Yeah, I don't always win. And that's why this is such a tough business to be in, and that's why I'm the only kickboxing promotion. That's a pro kickboxing promotion, especially. Forget that. I'm the only exclusively kickboxing promotion in the entire state of California. There's no other show that just does kickboxing that I'm aware of. And I'm the only pro kickboxing promotion in the whole state. We're talking about the most populous state in the United States.
Yep.
With all the talent in it. And I asked, Dan Stell, the referee I was telling you about, the vice president of the IKF, I said, is there another pro kickboxing show? Am I the only one? He said, right now, I think you're the only one. Because it's not an easy business. Now, I will say, I definitely win more than I lose.
Okay, so since you've been doing it now, I assume you have a good idea of how this is working.
Yeah.
You're not losing now.
No. I win. But, it needs to be better if I'm going to take this thing to the UFC or Bellator level. And that's why I say, we need to get more people interested. We need to get more sponsors. There needs to be more of an investment in this sport, not just in the promoters, but in the fighters as well.
So at the bare minimum, what would, and you might not know the exact figures or anything, at the bare minimum, what would you have to pull to at least break even on an event? Like, what would an event cost?
Man, it depends. It depends on the quality of the event. I think a mediocre event, amateur, mediocre, probably has to run between 15 and 20,000.
So you have to pull 15 to 20,000 not to be in red at like a mediocre, and that like
mediocre, like you're getting deals and it's like it doesn't look fancy. So there's no bells and whistles.
So that's why ticket sales important.
Very important.
Sponsorship important.
Very important. Because
you say not only in sponsorship can you save money, but I would assume sometimes they even give you some money for the advertising.
Right, and also sometimes they give you gear, right? So big shout out to Beast Coast Unlimited. It's a glove company.
Those are nice. Those nice gloves.
They're beautiful. They give me gloves. That's, these gloves are like $50 to $100 a pop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if somebody sends you 10 pairs of gloves, they just saved your ass, right? all this stuff adds up, man. All this stuff adds up. And if it's a total promotion that looks like crap, I mean, it's got to be 10 G's. You're spending 10 G's. You're spending 10 G's on the ugliest thing you can think of. You're spending 10 G's. So on a mediocre one, you're spending 15 to 20.
See, that's what would stress me out so much is going into this. Like, you'd have to really know what you're doing because that's a big hit.
It is.
A big chance.
And if you want to make it look nice, I mean, I think bare minimum is like 25, 30, man.
Is the majority of the cost coming from the place you're renting out?
No. The majority of the cost at this point for me, and I won't say the majority because everything adds up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a couple grand to rent a ring, a few grand for the venue, the insurance, a couple grand, so it's everything adds up. But the most expensive thing for me, and again, they deserve it, is the commission, which, typically it's, I guess, between somewhere around $4,000, sometimes $5,000, sometimes more. So sometimes, I mean, now with the pro one, who knows what it's going to be? It might be a little bit more. So but they're bringing you judges, they're bringing you referees, they're bringing you a physician, they're bringing you everything you need to run a show, a timekeeper, everything.
And you're not getting anything off of, because I know you have food there, but I don't think you get anything off of the food, right? Or are you getting a percentage off food?
Well,
because I think initially you weren't.
With Christian, I mean, I don't get enough from the food for me to care.
Oh, okay.
So I decided I want to go with Christian because he makes delicious food, delicious Mexican food that, I think anybody can get behind. And he sponsors the weigh-in, right? He gives food to the fighter. So for me, that was a great exchange. Come sell your food.
Yeah.
And whatever.
Good
Keep the money. But he's giving me food to feed these fighters, and for me that matters. That means a lot.
And then so as far as the future, I know we've talked just the two of us a few times, and how big you feel like this could be.
There's a ton of potential.
Yeah, so like you said, if you're the only one, and also I think the reason I wasn't into combat sports when I was younger was it wasn't as big as it is today, especially the mixed martial arts side. UFC isn't what it is now.
Wasn't what it is.
Yeah, wasn't what it is now. And but now it seems like UFC's huge, Bellator huge.
Even boxing, man. It's like it hoisted boxing up as well.
Yeah, I think boxing's going to have a rebound soon here. But it's more mainstream. I know boxing used to be an American thing where it was huge, but I think it took a dive, especially because people weren't doing the correct matchmaking.
Yeah.
But how big do you think you could see yours going? Like realistically, what are you seeing fighters rep?
I think at the end of the day, and if I don't believe this, then I wouldn't be doing this. I think at the end of the day, I think it could be as big or bigger than the UFC. I really think so, because when you look at it from a casual fan's perspective, there's no grappling, there's no holding, and when you're with a casual fight fan and they're watching the UFC and they're loving it because the guys are standing up and fighting each other, soon as they grab each other and go to the ground, the casual fan gets turned off. They don't want to see guys rolling around on the ground. Only people that really appreciate jiu-jitsu and wrestling want to see that. The casual fan doesn't want to see one guy in another guy's guard. They just don't want to see it.
I think the clinch is the biggest thing for me, where I'm like,
you're not into that.
I'm not into the clinch. It just because, I mean, I understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
But just as far as the excitement level, that's not what. Yeah.
Right. But in our rule set, in the unified kickboxing rules that we use at Fighters Rep, you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to fight. If you hug the guy, the referee's going to run in there and break you apart, and you guys got to stand and fight. If you're hurt and you want to hold the guy for some reprieve, you cannot. Mm-hmm. They're going to break you up and you're going to stand and fight, and somebody's going to go down and the action's not going to stop. So that's why I think that if it's marketed correctly, the way a genius like Dana White marketed the UFC, or like Eddie Hearn has marketed boxing in the UK, where they're selling out soccer stadiums. If it's marketed correctly, it'll be bigger. It can be bigger, but it's going to take a lot of work. And it takes the right person, somebody who enjoys doing it.
How long do you see that taking? Not to get to that level, but where you see a big boom there.
Yeah, I think a big boom within the next 5 years. I think within the next decade, probably like huge.
So you're thinking millions.
I'm thinking billions.
Billions.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, if I'm being honest, yeah.
Okay.
But it's more about the success. It's more about the quality, because I feel like the money comes.
Yeah.
The money will come.
I think that's in anything though.
Yeah.
Like especially if you found it as a passion. If you're really good at that passion, someone will pay you for that.
Yeah, the money will come. I mean, and the person who taught me that is my dad. My dad taught me that. My dad is a guy from Lebanon. Grew up in the Civil War. Hard man. Grew up fighting as well. Did Taekwondo and Greco-Roman wrestling. And went to Mexico. And then came to the United States. So kind of like Carlos Slim, Lebanese Mexican. And he told me, from when I was a young kid, he said, this is America. And if you shine shoes and you're good at it, you're going to make $1 million. And he's right.
Cool. Okay. I don't think there's anything else that I really want to ask you. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about?
I first and foremost,
I'm going to let you shout out some stuff.
Yeah, I definitely want to shout out, first and foremost, Beast Coast Unlimited. Like I said, for the gloves, definitely check them out at Beast Coast Unlimited on Instagram. Also, Lotus Group Real Estate. Follow us at Fighters Rep on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. And when you follow us on Instagram, you'll see these sponsors. So it's Beast Coast Unlimited. Big shout out for the gloves. Lotus Group Real Estate. Big shout out to them. They just help the fight game because they love it. Great real estate company down here in Southern California. Ali Optimal Wellness, Majid Ali. He's I call him the witch doctor, man. That guy, or a shaman. I mean, anything that's hurting, anything that's wrong with you, if you go to this guy, he'll give you some like herbal mix. He'll do some acupuncture. He'll do his thing, and really, I mean, it's made a difference in my life, So, and he loves the fight game. He's got so much experience dealing with fighters, and inflammation and all kinds of things that happen to fighters. And he's someone I recommend anybody in the fight game. He's got decades of experience helping fighters. And he's also sponsoring us. And he's so generous. So I love the guy, And then, and now Strand Life Financial. They've also just signed on as a sponsor. So big shout out to them. Check them out. They do insurance and financial planning and things like that, and more lovers of the fight game.
Shout out your upcoming thing. I know we've talked about it a couple of times, but you have a show coming up in February.
Yeah, Fighters Rep 9, our first Pro-Am show, February 28th. It's going to be at Seal Beach at the Ames Sportsplex. You can get your tickets at fightersrep.com. I guarantee you will not see more entertaining fights. All the fights are always entertaining. Again, it's stand and bang. There's no running. There's no holding. They got to stand and fight each other. Fantastic. It's going to be a fantastic show. We've got, we're planning on 16 fights. The pros will be at the top of the card, obviously. Probably a couple, might have a UFC vet or a couple Bellator UFC vets on there that want to, do kickboxing. So it should be a fantastic show. A lot of great talent. And then if you can't make it, if you're nowhere near Southern California, we'll be airing it live on YouTube, keeping it free. Of course, we have Super Chat, so if you want to support us, you could throw $1, $5, $10, whatever you want at the Super Chat. That'd be greatly appreciated. It all gets reinvested right back into the promotion. And as you've seen, with every iteration, I've improved the promotion. I've added more bells and whistles. I've made it better for the fighters and for the fans. So I'll continue to do that.
And one last thing, I know you're always looking for people that could help you out. I always think in any business, you're always looking for people that can help you out. If anyone was ever interested in the fight game and they wanted to kind of learn from you, I know you're always looking for people to be able to find sponsorships. Like you'll have things on there. Is that something that you'd be willing to have someone, if someone can provide value to you, could they ever reach out to you and be like, hey?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that is where I need probably the most help right now, is finding a real sponsor, because I mean, there's no reason somebody wouldn't want to sponsor this, right? I mean, we have a bar, so if it's a liquor company or a beer company, we can sell their brand. We have food, so if it's a food company, it's a fight, so anything to do with like health and nutrition and fitness, we'd love to have a sponsor there. And it's just, we're spread too thin, and I'm not a specialist in acquiring sponsors. I mean, I reach out to as many people as I can, and the team tries as well, but to find someone that's dedicated to just looking for sponsors, that's kind of a very niche I think profession, and I don't really have somebody that does that. I've had some people express interest but then not really follow through, so I'm always looking for someone. And they can reach out to me if you send a message at Fighters Rep on Instagram, or to info@fightersrep.com or george@fightersrep.com, the message will get to me if they're interested, and I'd love to have somebody help me there.
Awesome. Okay, I think that's it for me. So for those of you, follow George. He's a good follow. Fighters Rep. Instagram is the one that I follow everything, but he has everything.
YouTube is another thing. Subscribe to the YouTube channel.
So follow him. Super interesting stuff. Thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, man.
And we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace. So that's it.
That was great. Thank you.